Third part. Bo wasn't paying attention. Even after Meg got up, he still had his guard down. His mind didn't grasp what was happening until the instant he took Meg's branch right through the heart. The terrific impact pushed the end through his back, but as Bo was knocked back 15 feet, he unleashed 3 arrows simultaneously. Meg bounded, a branch in her right hand, and though she managed to strike down 2 of them, she missed the 3rd arrow. D. At that moment, the brink of the enormous hole Dee was clinging to gave way with stupefying ease, plummeting along with the gorgeous figure to the bottom of a new 30-foot-wide subsidence. Dee, Meg cried, her body quavering as if she were suffering some kind of fit. It wasn't that she held him dear, but a thing of beauty had been destroyed, and she found that unforgivable. Spinning around, she dashed over to Bo. The pseudo-vampire lay on his back, and she straddled him, savagely jabbing his own arrows into his chest and face. Eyes and nose, lips and teeth, all melted into a bloody morass, and the geysering blood deflated his shredded heart. His spine and skull, ribs and collarbones were all smashed to powder. Like seasoning for the pulpy soup of flesh and blood. Somewhere, the night cried out. Its voice took the form of a gunshot. Meg twisted her upper body around, and it was a second later that she returned to her senses. The direction she turned wasn't that of the gunshot, but rather that of the subsequent scream. Cowboy! You S.O.B. How could you do that to one of your own? The voice was one she knew. Lancer's. The moonlight, fog, and trees had all kept him hidden from Meg's view. Lancer had been shot, and there was only one person it could have been. Don't make me laugh. Servant of the nobility, scum of the earth. The least you can do is let one of my bullets show you the way to hell. She still couldn't see the source of that wild voice, but Meg felt like she had a million friends now. You're okay, eh, Meg? The rifleman called out. Lancer forgotten for the moment. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. I'm fit as a fiddle. Hold on and I'll be right there as soon as I'm done with him. The hell you say, human? Lancer snarled. The anger just seemed to boil up in him, and Meg felt a little panicky. But his anger dissipated in no time. I've known where you were for a good long time, he continued calmly. You can follow after Dee. Something knifed through the wind, and a few seconds later the ground quaked. The roar of the natural disaster sent the fog rolling back, then rushing in again. Cowboy, Meg shouted, standing rooted in place. She wasn't afraid of Lancer, for she'd heard the crack of a rifle, a split second before his short spear had created another massive subsidence in the ground. And immediately after it, Lancer's scream. Cowboy, Lancer? There was no answer. Who had won? She didn't know. Who had lost? She couldn't tell. Once again the tears streamed from the girl. Then she murmured Dee's name, and began walking along the brink of the double sinkhole. Page break. It was about 40 minutes later that, choosing a massive tree with a solid-looking trunk, roots, and branches, Meg undid a reel of wire taken from Bo's belt, wrapped one end around the tree trunk, and descended into the hole. For weapons, she had 10 of Bo's arrows tucked through her belt. The jumble of dirt, rocks, and trees had stopped at a depth of about 70 feet. The ground was a dangerous minefield of holes covered in dirt, which Meg skillfully navigated. But on coming to the center of the subsidence, she groaned, "Oh Lord." The top of one of the trees had snapped off at an angle, and the young man in black was impaled on the tip of it. His body was bowed like a crescent moon, with 3 of Beau's arrows embedded in his chest, and the top of the tree trunk piercing him just above the waist. Despite the horrific sight he presented, the young man's chest still rose and fell, and Meg was chilled to see that his right hand grasped his sword. Before the girl could call it his name, Dee moved his right hand under himself, long sword still in its grip, and grabbed hold of the trunk that pierced him. As the girl watched, he lifted his body up with the strength of one arm, and a moment later, he rolled at Meg's feet. The sound of that wooden stake tearing free of his flesh echoed in Meg's ears. With the same hand, the hunter grabbed all 3 arrows at once, pulled them out, and discarded them. Meg was speechless. "You okay?" she asked, but naturally that was only after Dee had caught his breath. "More or less. To survive that, you Dampiers must be something else." "What happened to the bowman?" Dee asked. "He's dead. At that point, she followed Dee's line of sight, and noticed that she was covered in gore from chest to waist. She'd been spattered with Beau's blood. "How's your condition?" "Awful. Or that's what I'd tell you. But pretty good. It's like I never run out of stamina." "If we stay here, nobles will be coming soon," said Dee. "But when I'm punctured by wood, it's slow to heal. Give me blood." He said it so matter-of-factly. "Okay," the girl promptly replied, and then she went pale. "What am I saying? Not a chance." "It doesn't matter where. Just make a light cut somewhere. A mouthful will do." "No, that's disgusting. It's like some kind of noble ritual. I don't want to see you drinking blood."
"There's no time. Any minute now."
"I said no, and I mean no," Meg exclaimed, her body quaking. "Nobles in blood are just the worst things imaginable. All I ever wanted was a life fishing." Just then, something like a wire came down from overhead and wrapped around Meg's waist. A needle of rough wood flew from Dee's right hand, but from a far greater height a voice remarked, "It's no use, Dee. I'm up in the stratosphere. If you want the girl, come to the castle. That is, supposing you manage to hack your way through the failures I've sent out here for you." Gildy's voice had rained down, and in no time at all Meg had been hauled away into the air. Dee followed for a while, but he soon turned his eyes to his feet. He just noticed that when he'd hurled the needle at his lofty foe, his left hand had fallen out of the coat pocket where he'd stashed it. His moon-shaming beauty and his intrepid figure showed neither hesitation nor fear. But after taking 3 arrows and a tree trunk through his upper body, how would Dee get through this without his left hand? An energy supply of sorts for him? Look. Up on the rim of the subsidence, ephemeral figures shrouded in murderous intent jostled against each other. Crimson was the color of hunger, with 2 points of that hue set in their pale faces. The undead panted and waited to see who would be on the receiving end of the coming slaughter. Chapter 8, and